Greetings and welcome. This is Coach Veronica Marie, and I am here to talk about how to work with hard emotions. Some call them negative emotions. Yes, we use that word, but I really prefer the word hard because they are challenging to deal with at times. Just the frequency of them require a lot of energy. The frequency requires a lot of energy, focus. If you have things to do, then that energy is vying for your attention as well as the hard emotion. And so sometimes we need some practical steps in working with that. So if that sounds like something that you would love to hear about, then you're in the right place. Consider liking the video, consider subscribing, and also consider sharing it. If you need one-on-one coaching, like if something I'm saying you think you may want to go a little deeper into it, then go to my website, veronicamarie.com, and sign up for a session. Also connect with me on social media. Just type in the hashtag Veronica Marie. You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok. Okay. So with that being said, hard emotions. A lot of people don't have no clue on how to deal with these emotions. They do the best thing that they can, right? Some people spiritual bypass. I see this a lot in the spiritual community where people have a lot of knowledge, let's say about scripture or a life or universal truth. And so as soon as the thing happens, they immediately apply one of those areas, the scripture, the truth, or positive thinking and such. And I think there's a time for it, but you know it's not the time for it when the hard emotion is pervasive, when it's not going away with that, when you're having to confront the hard emotion over and over again with the truth or with the scripture, you're actually creating warfare within yourself. In my opinion, that's when it's time for you to take a different approach because hard emotions do not need to be defeated. They do not need to be suppressed or denied. If you ask me, I believe they're worth looking into, acknowledging, not only acknowledging, because some people can acknowledge hard emotions, but understand them. Others can acknowledge and understand, but integration, I feel, is of the utmost importance. And that's where I want to talk today. So positive thinking has its space. I just want to reiterate that reframing has its space. I want to reiterate that because I don't want you walking away from this teaching thinking that those are not useful. They are useful, but it's like having a toolbox. You know, you're not going to drill something into the wall with a hammer. Okay, you need the appropriate tool. And some things you can't pull out of the wall with a pliers. You need something else. You maybe need to unscrew it, right? So you need the proper tools to work with hard emotions. And those things that I just mentioned, truth, scripture, and such, are good tools, but you got to know when to use them. And when you're creating warfare within yourself, division within yourself, hardship within yourself, you need another tool. So whenever a thing happens, like the immediate reaction is your emotion and it's relevant, it's important, it's valid. Some people go into self-correction right away. I don't suggest that. I suggest that you acknowledge, yeah, I was disappointed. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I was bothered. Yes, that stung, right? Acknowledgement is super important. The next question is, why did that disappoint me, right? Were there any areas where I was kind of living in some assumption or some expectation? Was that the case? Or is this showing me spaces where I'm living out of alignment with what I truly desire? Is this a space of informing me of things I didn't know before? And let me tell you this, all of those are always true. Okay, all of those are always true. It's just that the level at which you look at it depends on your ability, also your willingness to look really deep into a situation. So a lot of people right away begin to they begin to look outward and project outward. things happen, and so they begin to attribute things happen and they begin to attribute it to a person's character. We begin to use all kind of names and begin to engage in suspicion. An example would be, let's say you were expecting someone to do something, they didn't do it, they did the opposite. You already are not plugged into their heart, you don't know their heart very well. Also, you may carry some suspicious ways of being. So as soon as the person makes the decision or the choice or the behavior, you go, aha, I knew it. This is revealing to me their true intention. Okay. Yeah. I one day want to talk about the difference between suspicion and intuition, but that's probably for a different time. All right. So when a thing happens, you have some kind of emotion. You have an emotion, and there is a thought or interpretation that is associated with the emotion. Now, if you're not aware, you're going to say, I didn't think anything, I just felt. Sometimes people say, I'm not thinking anything. There's always thoughts associated with emotions. So slow down and ask yourself what thoughts are going along with this? What thoughts are associated? What thoughts are correlated? What thoughts support this? Good question. Once you see the thoughts, ask yourself, what does this mean? I often ask people this question and they'll say, well, it means nothing, right? And let me give you an example. So let's say a person um, didn't support you and you feel disappointed about that. So then I might ask, well, what does that mean to you? If you're unaware, you'll say it doesn't mean anything because in the grand scheme of things, what's for me is for me, blah, 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 right? Well, that saying that it doesn't have a meaning is not true. It's just that you're not aware. So a good response would be, let me think about what that means, because it does mean something. It means that maybe they don't care as much, or maybe it means you can't depend on them. You develop a meaning with everything. Right. So as you go throughout your daily life, ask yourself, what does this mean to me when I'm having a hard emotion? Number one, what am I experiencing? What is this telling me about myself, my beliefs, and my thoughts? What thoughts are coming up? What does this mean? Okay, to me. Next, is this meaning supported by universal truth? If you don't know universal truth, here's a good time to do a study. You can look up universal laws and principles. There's a great place to start. The Kabbalion is there, but you can Google, right? You can Google a lot of things and come up with some truths that are universal, meaning they're true for everyone. What truth supports this? And if there isn't a truth that supports it, right, then what do I want to do about this, right? Do I want to shift my belief system so that it reflects more truth? I will give you a clue that a lot of times that's going to help you feel better right away. Do I want to shift the outer circumstance in some way? Do I want to leave? Do I want to walk away, remove myself? But let me just tell you this, that even if you leave and remove yourself, and you might need to, you're still going to walk away with that same experience that you still need to go through this process with. Okay, you're going to still need this process because most people don't know what they believe. They don't even pay attention to what they're thinking because it's such an automatic response. They're working in an autopilot. They're programmed. So when a person says, I don't know, to some things that I might ask, right, I realize that they may be operating in an autopilot in that area. And so I'll say, well, take some time to think about it and let me know. Right. So asking yourself, what does this mean, is going to open up a lot of hidden places within you because you're going to find some interpretations that you no longer even agree with, but they're still there. They're still there from past circumstances. And when you find that, it's not a time to engage in war. It's not a time to suppress or push it aside or push through. It's time to lovingly acknowledge that at one point in your life, that thought process served you. It really did. At one time, it gave you a sense of security. It helped you predict the world around you. At one time, it helped you understand the world. So that thought used to be important, but now it no longer applies. So in a graceful way, you say, thank you so much. I see where you came from, thought, belief system, meaning. I even remember how I formed you, and you served me well. And now I release the belief that other people should agree with me. I release the belief that other people's opinions reflect something about my core. I release the need to be seen a certain way. I release the need to shape shift and contort to other people's needs and desires at the expense of my own. All of these are spaces of release. You see how we move from the hard emotion all the way through into self-understanding. Some people don't want to go through this process. Some people just want to say, oh, I no longer believe that. I'm letting it go. Well, usually, if they don't take the time to go through this process and practice it, and I say and practice it, you need practice, okay? Because that old thought has formed a neural circuit in your brain. It has become part of your physical existence. And so the practice is going to, the less you go to that thought, the less you experience that emotion, the less you take on that mindset, the weaker the energetic connection will become, and hopefully it will go extinct, what we call extinct. And you will strengthen the new neural circuit by practicing it, right? So you need practice. People who have a sudden realization and say they're changed, I'm not saying that can't happen, but usually when we're talking about conditioned spaces, you need practice. The change, number one, occurs spontaneously in the realization, and then it must become living. It must become the living word, or else it's just knowledge, and knowledge is beautiful, right? But when you really want change, you have to move yourself through a process. It begins maybe with a spontaneous realization, but it continues and is seeded and becomes part of you with practice. You need practice. Okay. It's not fair to expect yourself to move in a whole different way of being because you had a sudden realization. Maybe you can, but in a lot of cases, it takes practice. Don't beat up on yourself. Don't say you're going backwards. Don't do all the things that we do when you start resorting to old ways. Simply lovingly correct yourself. I no longer believe that. I used to believe it because I was in that space. I no longer need it. Now I understand A, B, C, D, and E, and that's how I want to make this choice. It's a loving process. Anyone who's hating themselves, showing apathy, disdain, displeasure, judging a past self really needs to move in a space of self-acceptance. All the selves exist. None of them are dead. All right. But neural circuits can go extinct, and that self can be integrated into this life. A lot of people are feeling not chosen, disregarded, discarded, and things because they've done it to themselves. And that's their unresolved energy speaking. And so when someone else simply makes a choice to say, no, I don't want that, or no, I don't want to be with you, or no, I don't want to work with you, those unresolved selves get activated, but they don't know it. So they start saying the other person didn't choose them, discarded them, when it's really their unresolved energies, right? So that's why it's important when you experience a hard emotion to go through this process. Is this the process every time? I'm not going to say every time, but anytime you are experiencing discomfort within yourself, when the emotion keeps coming back, even though you try to push it down with positive thinking, scripture, and truth, it means you need a deeper process. Okay. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover today. I am not on YouTube, so if you are commenting, I can't see comments. But go on the recorded version of this live when it's posted, post your comments and I'll be able to see. I have a book out called Self Intimacy, A Beginner's Guide to Self-Discovery. And this book is for anyone who wants to look deeper into the ways that they are and how they relate to others, how they relate to themselves, develop self-intimacy so you can enjoy intimacy with others rather than feeling insecure, fearing, and living in spaces of lack. I just finished formatting my first Oracle deck, so that will be released pretty soon. Stay tuned for that. I also have another book in the works. It's called The Empowered Empath. This is a guide. This book is a guide to give you strategies and education on how to stop absorbing and how to really help people effectively, right? Empaths do not have to absorb, but they will think they have to absorb when they don't have proper tools. And I'm all here to equip you with tools for healthier and happier living. All right, that's it. Check me out at veronicamarie.com and we will talk soon.